Hello, my name is Paul Doherty, Colonel, United States Army retired. I briefly want to cover some of my credentials. I'm a graduate of the United States Military Academy. I have graduate degrees in business from Villanova University, master's in educational leadership from Immaculata University. I've recently finished a master's degree in history at Westchester University, and I'm also a graduate of the U.S. Army War College, where I received a master's degree in strategic studies. Um, while serving overseas, I was on the East German border as a young officer during the Cold War, and I also served two tours as a special operations officer in USA CAPOC in Bosnia, and in the same unit, I deployed to Iraq three times. I have a fairly long career active in reserves, totaling about 35 years. But the topic that I'm going to cover in my paper deals with the performance of the 1st Marine Division during the Korean War, more specifically at the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir, which is one of the highlights of military traditions for the Marine Corps. The unit was kind of unique in that the mission from General MacArthur called for a full, complete Marine Division and all of its supporting assets. That was almost impossible for the Marine Corps to produce in 1950 based on the sheer numbers that they had on active duty. So, therefore, they had to rely on their reserve component. Now, they had a reserve component going all the way back to the right before the First World War, but after the war, they maintained a reserve that led all the way up to the beginning of the Second World War. After World War II, they faced a number of different challenges, obviously, financial issues dealing with Congress and budgeting and funding. But more importantly, they were fighting for their relevance. There was an initiative to pare down the military, maybe even take and deactivate the Marine Corps, incorporate it into the Army. So, those were some of the issues that they faced. So the Marines were very proactive in how they were going to make themselves relevant going into the future. So they beefed up their Marine Reserve. They called upon former World War II veterans with combat experience, junior officers and NCOs, and then they enticed them in various ways to join the reserve. And the reserve required them to do two weekends, actually 4 weekends a month, 2 weeks out of the year for annual training. So they were able to keep their skills honed and maintain the bare minimum of their qualifications. Now, when they were called upon in 1950, it's extraordinary that within a matter of weeks, these units, some of them were company size, some battalion size, were able to mobilize and deploy very quickly out to California. They were incorporated in the 1st Marine Division and then deployed to Korea. Division landed at Incheon. It was instrumental in securing Seoul. And then when MacArthur attacked, the North Koreans pushed them over the 38th parallel all the way up to the Yalu River. The 3rd Marine Division was required, the 1st Marine Division was required to land at Wonsan and then move its way north following a plan that was put out by MacArthur's staff. And as they got up to the Chosin Reservoir, they were in the final stages of moving forward from that position all the way up to the Chinese border when the Chinese attacked, pushing just about every asset other than themselves back in disarray. The Marines themselves, though, were extraordinary in that they were able to maintain cohesion. Their leadership was extraordinary. They were able to bring all their equipment, their wounded and their dead out. And as Chesty Puller said, they weren't retreating, they were attacking in an opposite direction, which is actually true. They were surrounded and were able to fight their way back along their main supply route back to the port so that they could be extricated from the peninsula and move further south. Um, I also noticed during this research that not only were they extraordinary, but their units on their left and right flank, or more specifically, the U.S. Army units, were in disarray, and their policies set them up for failure. For example, in the 7th Infantry Division, the Army 7th Infantry Division, they had a policy where they would put senior officers who were World War II veterans but did not have combat experience, giving them an opportunity to check that block. And yet, all of these officers ran into serious amounts of trouble due to a lack of not necessarily competence but of experience. So, why was I interested in this particular topic? Well, my father was a Korean War veteran. He was an Army NCO, was a combat medic in Korea. But I also had a great uncle who was actually one of these World War II vets. He enlisted for the Second World War, got a battlefield commission in the Pacific, and was in the reserves. When called upon, he deployed, and he was actually selected as a first lieutenant to lead the attack out to move back to the perimeter, where he was awarded a Navy Cross. So that pretty much culminates my brief talk tonight and why I was interested in this topic. Thank you very much.